Again, this week's topic is part one of a two-part series. And to start off, I'd like to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered how your company comes up with the prices you charge? Even if you're working with a flat rate, haven't you ever thought they were too high or too low? I'll bet that some of you have, and I'll bet there are even a few of you who think it's just a matter of getting as much as you can from the customers. Am I right? Well, I hate to disappoint you, but your company's selling prices are determined by math, not greed. And I'm going to prove it to you. It all starts with costs. Why? Because you can't know how much you need to make until you figure out how much you're spending.
Yeah, Rock, got a question about this faucet job you did the other day. You know, the one you called the Whopper.
Yeah, Junior, what did I charge her too much?
Actually, it looks like you kind of undercharged her.
Undercharged? I charged triple for that faucet. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I mean, but look, with all you went through to put it on the sink, you were there for 5 hours.
Well, the pipes were rusty, and the particular faucet that she wanted, I didn't have in the truck, so I had to go to the warehouse.
No, yeah, I figured that, because Trixie was calling all over the place trying to find the right one in stock. And then the warehouse was miles from the job. You hit the pothole on the way over there, so the truck needs a new axle, and, you know...
Yeah?
Yeah, and I'm thinking we lost about $1,000 on your Whopper.
I remember the first time I took a look at business finance. Not exactly my specialty, if you catch my drift. Well, I thought I had a pretty good idea of what my company had to spend to operate the business. You know, rent, salaries, and everything. But I've got to tell you, I was dumbfounded when I discovered how many different expenses were involved. First of all, did you know that there were different categories of costs? Sure. There are direct costs and indirect costs. Well, I know that probably sounds like a lot of accounting mumbo-jumbo, but it makes sense when you think about it. Breaking down costs into categories helps organize the information, and being organized helps ensure that nothing is left out.
Let's see now. There's the gas we spend for the trucks. And the phone bill? Oh yeah, and that new bottle of nail polish I bought with the petty cash. And the new axle on Rocky's truck. Boy, this ain't so hard. I told Junior I could do this as good as any old accountant. Now, there's the rent. Where am I going to out that? Oh, there's a space over in that other column. Good. Now they're all the same length.
So what's included in direct costs? Well, as it mentions in the C2000 Best Practices Operations Manual, these are the costs of goods sold, the cost of the sale, or the job site expenses. You know, the costs that are directly related to the sale. This includes material, labor, and permits. So under labor, you would have to include all the costs associated with field employees. Not just their hourly pay while working on the job, but their hourly pay while they're traveling to and from the job site. Their vacation pay, health insurance, liability insurance, workman's comp, insurance, unemployment tax. Whew! I think you get the idea. You see, it's not as simple as you might have thought. In addition to these costs, there are also indirect costs. This category is sometimes referred to as overhead and represents the costs you pay independent of the sale. And how do you know exactly what to include under this category? Easy. Everything that wasn't covered under direct costs. Rent, utilities, repairs, interest, advertising, supplies, office equipment, salaries, etc., etc. These are costs you have to pay regardless of how many sales are made. So when business is slow, they can become a heavy burden.
How's it looking? It's been kind of slow lately because of the weather, huh?
Yeah, it's definitely slower than I'd projected. But it's a good thing we found a few ways to lower our overhead costs for this year. We'd be pretty hurting about now.
Yeah, so the new lease you negotiated with the landlord and the lower insurance premiums and the great deal you got on truck maintenance really paid off, huh?
Big time, yeah. So we're in pretty good shape without having to raise our prices.
Good.
Now, advertising like Yellow Pages, radio, and TV might seem like an obvious expense. But what about debt collection, postage, or vehicle depreciation? They're also considered indirect expenses. So it does take some careful thought and some very careful bookkeeping to make sure you've discovered or considered all the details. Once you've categorized your expenses for a set period of time, a year for example, you can add them together to determine the total amount of money you've spent to do business during that time. This total cost represents the amount of money you need to take in or recover from customers just to break even. And that brings us to the next step, which is determining how to set our selling prices. How do you know what prices to charge? Trial and error could be pretty dangerous. What if you charge too little and discover at the end of the year that your company has actually lost money? What if you charge too much and the competition ends up stealing all your customers? Well, one simple method is to have your wife or daughter call your competitors for their prices and then set your prices slightly lower.
Okay, so how much would you charge for a clogged sink? I see. And what about for like a new thermostat? Okay. Oh yeah, and you know what? I ain't got any hot water. How much for that? Okay, thank you. Hey Rocky, I got your rates for you.
Well, that's one way to do it, but we'll be discussing a better way to do it in part 2 of this module, selling prices. Until then, I hope you enjoyed the presentation and that you'll find this week's exercise both fun and informative. Goodbye for now.